at, you guys are supposed to be writing down a problem. We'll get back to that in just 1 second. As we are peeking at your Google Classroom, P.S. Schedule for today is on the board if you guys need it. Your Google Classroom, haven't we gotten some different things coming up? Like, why are you ignoring me? Awkward silence. Take a deep breath, take a deep breath. Let it out. You only have to make it through just a few more minutes, right? Short day, noon, you get nutrition, halfway in between. Come on, we got this. All right. As we get into your Google Classroom, you guys see a few different due dates. Question, when is the review and the spiral and the notes usually due? It's usually due on what day? It's usually due on test day. That's what we're going for. Lucas Wheat, sorry. There are corrections back there in manila folders. Oh, where did Emily put them? Where did I put them? Where did Emily put them? Hold on, I might have them. They have scores like 10 out of 10 that you can just record in Google Classroom if you have time, and that would be amazing. But I think I might have stolen them. Did I steal them? No, I didn't. Check the top drawer. Not that one, though. The one, yeah. Any luck?
Yes.
Golden. She has the test correction score. Not the new test scores, but the test correction score, I think, for both folders. And if you have time, just to record it in Google Classroom. Amazing. But if not, it's okay. Happy Friday. Oh, he's got it. Look at that. Confidence. That was a man that ran a I don't remember, better really fast, 1600 yesterday. Woohoo! 2 seconds away from his PR. Okay, here we go. Coming back. You guys see that these are all due on the test day, and the test day is what day? Tuesday. Wait a minute, why would it be Tuesday? Because, I don't have it up today. This is this week's schedule, you guys. I'm not letting you plan for next week's schedule. What is next week's schedule? Why is the test on Tuesday? Because next week has chapel on Monday. So is today our only work day? No, Monday is another work day. Is that a good news? Is that good news?
Sure.
You want the test on Monday? I mean, we can do the test on Monday. I'm here. No one be enthusiastic about the test on Tuesday. So if you want it on Monday, we'll try one more time. Is it good news that we have a work day on Monday?
Yes.
All right, it's a little bit better, but still pretty weak. So then we're going to go ahead and have the test on Tuesday because we have chapel, then A, then B, then A, then B. And for my calculus kids, 0 periods on Wednesday, but that doesn't really matter much to you guys. Okay. Unless you're like, I come steal donut holes. As long as it's after period 1. Period 4, I guess. 0 period. Okay, so test is on Tuesday, which means in some ways we have an 8.4 workday today, and in some ways we have a chapter 8 workday on Monday. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So test on Tuesday. That just allows you guys to plan as far as what you should be working on this weekend, which I would say is the test review, so that you don't leave it all till Monday night, because you only have Monday to Tuesday, not like a 2-day gap like you normally have. Okay, now that we've talked about that, let's go ahead and go back to where we were, which was this example. I'm not in the Jamboard, but maybe you guys are, to see the problem, but not to see the work, because I'm in all of chapter 8 in case we need to review something today. Question. What do the vertical bars around that matrix represent? What did we learn yesterday about vertical bars and matrices? Determinant and determinant for a 2x2. Is there a shortcut process that we like? And it's actually the first way that we learned how to find a determinant in section 8.3. How do we do this without that whole crazy process from last time? AD. No, not 1 over. That's the derivative. Not the derivative. The formula for the inverse. We're not finding the inverse. We're finding the determinant. And the determinant says AD minus BC, not switch, not swap. That's the inverse. We're just doing the determinant, and the determinant says main minus opposite. Main minus opposite. But what happens when we have polynomials, specifically binomials, multiplied by each other? Close. Which word is it, FOIL or factor? FOIL. Factor's the other way. It's already factored. We want a FOIL. We want to multiply. You could have been basic. It would have been perfect. Minus and negative 14. And then don't we have this weird, like, I don't know, it equals 0 because they just said it equals 0? Got him, coach. Mean minus opposite. That's a determinant. Not the weird formula. That's how to find an inverse using a determinant. I think I'm holding it weird. Let's try it. See if there's less scratchiness this way. You guys said FOIL, right?
Yes.
Anybody already beat me and get to negative x minus 20 because we're in honors pre-cal? Sasha says yes. Plus 14 equals 0. We end up with x squared minus x, I think. Maybe I read that wrong. Equals 0. How do I factor if I have a negative 6 and if I need a negative 1? Another way of looking at it is, what two little x terms would give me a negative 1x such that I could still find the rest of my trinomial? Ryan Krikorian, I believe he said 2 and 3, and that's great, except if I have a 2x and a 3x, how do I get a negative 1x? Which one needs to be negative? That one. And then if you're one of these like box type people, which most of you are not, but I can say, hey, what makes an x squared? It's an x and an x. X and what makes negative 3x? Well, of course. And x and what makes 2x? Of course. And then you can double check and say, hey, good, 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 and good. And we have our final factors of x plus 2 and x minus 3 if you tutor Algebra 1, and they are not ones such that you memorize a process and you just do it over and over again and they're gold, and if they need something visual, that's a great way to visualize factoring. But at the end of the day, we need the zeros, not the factors. And what are the zeros if the factors are x plus 2 and x minus 3? Got him. Dun 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 dun. As I would tell my Algebra 1 kiddos, I would say, take each factor, split the red C, set each one equal to 0, and solve. Okay, that was that problem. The question, that was probably not the hardest. That section 8.4 gets. Wasn't this where it got hard? We didn't see one of those problems with the x's last time, so I wanted to show it to you. But question, what do we do if they tell us to find a determinant and they force our hand as to which to use? Struggle bus. Is it going to work, though? Definitely, as long as you do your math right, because you're allowed to choose any what to do the process. Any single row or any single column, so if they want to force our hand, okay, fine, whatever. They're just giving us forced experience of what it looks like to choose different rows or different columns. What's the very, you guys choose. What do you think you don't have enough practice on yet? Rows or columns? I don't really care. Would you rather us do row 2 or column 3? Let's just do one just to review the process real fast. Row 2? All right, cool. So if we're going to do row 2, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and say, I'm doing you. That means I'm looking here. And then if I'm thinking about, my cofactors, why would I be getting out an orange pen? Why would I be thinking about cofactors? Why would I be putting little pluses and minuses? Because I need to alternate. Does that make sense? Yes. So then as I come down here to think about my determinant of, what's his name, A? Does it make sense? Not only am I going to be writing a 6 and a 3 and a 1 because that is row 2, but I'm also going to be writing in front of those a negative and a positive and a negative of whatever it is. Yes. Does that make sense? I'm taking whatever his original sign is and I'm multiplying it by a negative, by a positive, by a negative, and since they're all positive numbers, it works perfectly the way it is. But what's missing? Why are there big gaps? Why are there big holes? What does the expanding by cofactors method of doing determinants need besides the entry in a certain spot, the cofactor sign of a certain spot? What else is there? The determinant of, good, the determinant of, what's that guy's name of whatever's left behind? Starts with an M and ends with a, what most of you are because you're under 18. There you go. So we have 4 and 2 and negative 7 and negative 8. That's the determinant that I want. Why is it better than the last example yesterday? Because Brendan asked me for what about a 4x4, and that would have been a 3x3, and that would have been nasty. But instead, this is a 3x3 whose minors are going to be 2x2s, and I can use my cool main minus opposite to find the determinants. If you guys want some practice, find the other minors as I ask Mr. Ryan Union for his question. Go, sir.
I was just wondering, what page is this in the notes?
It was technically the one right above. It was like 2 slides after our last example. But remember, I'm not in the Jamboard because I am doing it in the main notes because I thought today would be a work day where I might need to go to older sections. I'll go ahead and get it copy and pasted into the Jamboard by the end of today. Other minors. I had it nice and written out, I know, so I'm kind of cheating, but you can also go to the number and remember, ignore the column, ignore the row, what is left? Ignore the column, ignore the row, what is left? But you would have gotten -3, 2, 4, and -8 as that minor, and this one you would have gotten -3, 4, 4, -7, but we can double check it by take away what's left. Dun, 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 dun. And now we have to do a lot of mains minus opposites. I'm going to be doing mains minus opposites to finish off the problem as I answer Ryan Krikorian's question. Sir, go.
I was just wondering how you got the determinant that's in red.
Oh, I haven't found the determinant yet. The determinant is indicated as needing to happen, which I'm about to do with main minus opposite, AD minus BC. I'm about to do the determinant, but how I'm getting what's here is that I am, once again, following that snazzy formula from last time, that snazzy formula that says if I want the determinant of A, I can pick any row or column, but they forced my hand. I take an entry, second row, first entry. I need the entry times the cofactor for that spot, for the second row, first column, and I need to go ahead and make sure I have everybody in that row. And then you have to look at your notes to remember if you don't remember, but I can try to just remind you. The entry is easy. It's the number, it's the number, it's the number. That goes first. The cofactor is a little bit trickier because the cofactor has some sort of plus or minus, depending on its location, has a plus or minus with the minor. The plus or minus of the minor, I shouldn't say plus and minus, that doesn't make sense. It's plus or, it's a positive or a negative of that minor. Positive or a negative of that minor. Positive or negative of that minor. And so I got the sign from looking at where these entries were in the matrix that I'm trying to find the determinant of. And then I ignore, if you go back in your notes, you ignore the row and the column of the entry. So I ignore the second row and the first column and I take whatever's left. I ignore the second row and the second column and I take what's left. I ignore the second row, the third column, and I take what's left. That's a definition of a minor from you last time. Okay, so now we're taking determinants, and those determinants, main minus opposites, and I have that guy and I have this guy. Main, that's 24, minus opposite, that's 8. Main, that's 21, minus opposite, that's 16. And I end up with, well, a little bit of math that needs to happen with -6 times negative, double check my math, but I think it's 28? No, 18, not 28. What am I thinking? Thank you, Joey. It's good to have you back. Plus 3 times, I believe 16, minus 1 times, I believe it's 5. Which isn't great. 6 times 18. First of all, how's that look? Correct my math if I've done anything wrong. Are we good? I see a 48, I see a -5, which would be 43, and then I see that being added to 108, I believe. And a 108 plus a 43 would be a 148, a 150. Oh, I got 151, right? Oh, yeah, a little bit off. Because I have a 48 and 4, that'd be 108, 108 plus 48 minus 5.
Yeah, it's 151.
I have 156 minus 5 is 151, I believe. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. But thank you, though, for being there and double-checking me so I could double-check you and we could get there to the final result together. Dun, 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 dun. With this, we have one last example going back to a 3x3 because we did end in an intense way last time with a 4x4. So back to the basics of a 3x3. Actually, we went all the way back to the basics of determinants with main minus opposite. It was just tricky because there were x's. But then we built up to a 3x3, and now let's go ahead and see if you guys are currently stuck anywhere in homework, because I have homework right here. I'm going to go ahead and open up that Jamboard, though, because as some of you guys mentioned, you are there currently, and if I'm doing homework questions, that would be a good place to put them. Any homework questions we're going to. Today is our 8.4 work day. That's okay. Monday will be our Chapter 8 work day. Homework questions? I'm here. I'm ready. Let me freeze the screen for those of you still writing down, but I'm opening up the Jamboard if we have homework questions, but if we don't, I guess I don't need to open it. Any homework questions on 8.4? Sorry, 6 different classes, 6 different sections. We are in 8.4. Feel free to open up WebAssign. Feel free to check it out, people. On the recording, I'm pausing because we're going to have a little bit of them seeing if they're stuck anywhere. If it's on the test review, don't stress. As long as you have the steps down, you're okay.
Yeah, because I never really got like the relish.
Because you ended at 1s and 0s all everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It was just having you practice the steps. Okay, the question that has been posed is also one that we never got an example for. So I think that's totally cool. Like some of you would be like, why didn't she do it? Because I need it. Okay, let's do it with the homework problem. Is that okay? Yeah. So with the homework problem, number 7, probably us finishing class today, right? Probably finishing us off. So Ryan, remember you were asking how we were getting all those pieces? This is something to kind of build that understanding as to what these guys are. Not in a way that we're actually finding a determinant, but we're just talking about, do you understand who or where these come from? Is that cool? So actually, for this guy over here, we're going to have to be thinking about like, okay, we have a 3 by 3, and so depending on what we use, we're going to have to assign these extra little signs to whoever these guys are. But for minors, we literally just say, okay, anytime we get to a certain term, I should say a certain place in the matrix, remembering really fast that when I'm looking at m and n's, I'm talking about m by n's, where I'm talking about the row first and then the column. This is like a shout out to a certain place in the matrix itself. So M, N. M is the row, N is the column, okay? So as I'm looking at the first row, first column, there is a 3 in that spot, but I'm not writing that down for either of these. That's the entry, that's A11. The minor would be ignore that row, ignore that column, and what's left. Now I can't do that for everybody and leave the little slashes, or else I wouldn't see my matrix anymore. So I also can think of looking here, and saying what's left, and what's left is a 2 and a 1 and a negative and a 1. But that's only the beginning of a minor. A minor says, I am this determinant. And so we would go ahead and do main minus opposite, which would end up being 3. 2 minus negative 1, or 2 plus 1. That's the minor. The cofactor would say, take that 3, multiply it by a positive, and then say, oh, okay, well, great, it's 3. And then in the process, that would be multiplied by an entry, and that would be a part of an entire progression along a row or a column.
Like practice.
It's basically like getting a solid understanding before the formula of who are these guys. Yeah. So it's basically practicing vocab, kind of. So then you guys tell me the next one. What would I be finding the determinant of for M12, first row, second column?
Negative 2, 1.
Yeah, so go to the 0, and then ignore his row, his column. Does that make sense? And what's left? See it? What's left? And what's left is going to be? Okay, so go to the 0, but that's the row in the column. That's the intersection to ignore. And I look everywhere else. Think minor is underneath. I mean, it's kind of hard to think underneath when you're over here in the middle, but still, you're not looking at the row or the column, you're looking everywhere else. Then I'm going ahead and solving. We'll solve that in a second, but can we go to the next one? So what about 1, 3? We'll get that in a second, but 1, 3. I didn't ignore, I didn't like cross out any rows or columns. Can you guys see why that was read off? What entry is here? 2. Ignore. What's underneath the rows and columns for the first row, third column? Negative 2, 2, 1, negative 1. If I cross out, you'll be able to see it even better. Is that cool? The really nice thing is for my method, I only need 1 for every entry in a row, or 1 for every entry in a column, but this is just having me get a solid understanding, so I would keep going all the way down. If you guys want, I'll go ahead and just do like the first 2 of the other ones, just so that you can kind of get some practice of what if we're not in the first row. If we're not in the first row, if we're like in the second row, We could ignore, negative 2 is there. I would have 0, 2. Negative 1, 1. And so then think about 3, 1. What would be the minor for this one? It wouldn't really be below, it'd be more above. Up and to the right, technically, ignoring the third row, first column. But can anybody see this one for 3, 1? Close. I agree with 2, 1. Because of this. But what was supposed to be on top? 0, 2. Because check it, right? 0, 2, 2, 1. Oh, I thought you said 2, 2. I don't know. But you saw it. You saw it. Thanks, Mary. So then we would just go ahead and for these, just to make sure that we know the entire procedure, we would do main minus opposite. It's just a little 2 by 2. So doing that AD minus BC formula, or I just think about the main, if that's easier, multiply like a dot product kind of. Main negative 2 minus 1 would be negative 3. I didn't even write it. Hold on. Where am I at? 1, 3? So negative 2, 2, 1, negative 1. There we go. Main would be 2. 2 minus 2, that's 0. Main, that would be 0 minus negative 2, 2, or 0 minus 4, which would be negative 4. And what would cofactors do for each of these? Check it. 1, 2 is coming specifically from this spot. Maybe it's better for me to do it this way. 1, 2 is coming specifically from this spot, which means I'm going to take my negative 3 and I'm going to make it a negative. Whatever is there, I'm going to make it a negative. To get ready then to do this, let me go ahead and write each of my numbers down that I've found. So I'm assigning a negative to a negative 3, which would make that a positive 3. For the 0, that's coming from the 1, 3 spot. Obviously that won't matter, but my positive 0 will be 0. If you guys are good, you can take off. For my 2, 1, I'm going to be looking right here at this spot, which would be assigning a negative to that. Or for 3, 1, for instance, I would be looking to this spot. Well, I have to find the minor, yeah, and then I put on the sign, or I multiply. Like a negative times a negative would be a positive times a negative will stay a negative. Common mistake is just make it a plus. No. Do the same of what's there, or do the opposite of what's there. Solid question. Bye, guys. I'll see you later. Maybe a couple 8-4 remaining questions. If you guys need it some other time, come on in. Otherwise, on Monday, workday on Chapter 8, test review. Bye, guys. I'll go ahead and extend 8-4 to Monday if it's not already, but I think it is already due Monday, right? Yeah. All right. Bye, guys. Let me get this loading for next period.